The other day I was hammering a nail through a piece of wood, and I accidentally hammered the nail straight through my own hands, and that reminded me of League of Legends. So I pulled up the game and I had three things in mind. See, I haven't played League of Legends in about 3 years, apart from the odd ARAM or two. And before that, I was on sort of university teams, in competitions, and my account peaked at around Diamond 1. But since then, I've been an absolute slacker. Largely because I realised that this game is similar to heroin in the way that it ruins your life, except it's not even fun while you're playing it. Despite these somewhat small issues I had with the game, I had questions 3 that needed to be answered. Number 1. Can you jump straight back into the game and achieve diamond rank with relatively few games played? Number 2, can you do that while one-tricking a champion? And number 3, can you one-trick a champion no matter what the meta is? And to save you some time, I've answered those questions for you already. But to find out how it all went, keep watching. After a queue time about the same length as the Cretaceous period, the queue finally popped, and I was super excited to begin my climb, one-tricking in mid lane. After drawing support for the first 3 games of my placement, I was finally lucky enough to get mid, and I decided that the champion I was going to one-trick was Galio. But not for long, because I realised Galio is trash. It took me 4 games of Galio, going 2 wins, 2 losses, to realise that this champ was just not going to get me to diamond anytime soon. Whilst my farming was still a bit rusty, I found that the most common cause of losses was that I was just counterpicked and forced out of lane. For instance, they would pick an AD mid like Tristana, push me in, I would have to back, they would roam, they would get kills, the game would snowball and then it would end. I needed something more flexible, something with higher range, good wave clear, that you couldn't necessarily counterpick very easily, and something that if you first picked it in the lobby, they wouldn't necessarily know what spot you're in. So looking at the champions that I know I can comfortably play, the champion that best fit this spot was of course vel'koz. Vel'koz is a relatively safe champion to first pick because people tend to think that he's support. He's also got ridiculously long range in the mid lane, beaten only by probably Xerath and Azir, maybe a couple others but not many. He can also achieve very high burst damage, and the combination of his W and passive allow him to push lanes extremely quickly, which means that you can roam, look for picks, kill the enemy jungler, or just gain map control around objectives. The first couple of games of vel'koz went very well. I started to get my farming back up and my general mechanics were getting a bit better, but at the same time I had some good junglers and some favourable matchups. And that was the end of my promos. I think I ended up going 5-5, maybe 6-4, and the Riot Gods doth decree that I be placed in Platinum 4 at 26 LP. At first I wasn't too happy with this because I'd been checking the elo of the players that I was playing against, and the average was definitely diamond. But I wasn't too sad about it because I knew that you could skip divisions, and I also knew that my mechanics weren't quite back yet, so I was excited to have the time to practice. And so the climb began. Now, up until this game, I'd been banning any old shit that I didn't know about because there was about 6 or 7 new champions that I just didn't have a clue what they did. So I was banning things like Gwen, Zeri, whatever the hell that is. But this game reminded me that you cannot play vel'koz against LeBlanc. Previously, you could go neutral in this matchup because you could build Rod of Age's first item instead of Luden's as your mana item, and that would give you the extra health you need to survive a LeBlanc burst. The matchup was still not favourable then, but it was much more manageable than this. She can one-shot you basically at any point after level 6. So after being spanked by LeBlancs, I started to ban her a few times, and I started winning more games. I got a few solo kills in lane, generally used that advantage to push and then roam, get a few more kills, and just snowball the game out of control. Banning a direct counter, and also asking teammates in the lobby if I can pick for them so I don't have to first pick the mid, is what I started to do, and I found that definitely increased my win rate faster. So much so that by the time I got to my promos in Plat 4, I didn't have to do the promos, but I skipped Plat 3 entirely and went into Plat 2 at about 20 LP immediately, I think. After getting excited about a few wins in a row and skipping a division, I very quickly approached another learning curve. I started to really struggle with just complete dive champions that could just run through everything you could put out and kill you anyway, under tower, like this Master Yi. The Kassadin matchup also proved to be an issue. He's generally just a whole lot stronger than LeBlanc as a character. Not pre-6, obviously, but as soon as he hits 6, it just starts to be hell. And I found that a lot of people played Kassadin, while a lot of people didn't play LeBlanc, so I switched out my ban for Kassadin. Once I started doing that, it just so happens that I never faced another LeBlanc again. I don't know, that's because I kept picking for my teammates and then swapping, so they never got a chance to counterpick, or I just happened to come into people that didn't play LeBlanc. But nevertheless, it stopped being an issue for me after that, and the more favourable matchups in lane helped me win more games. They weren't all victories though, and the dive champs were still being quite big of an issue. There are things that you can do to avoid being clapped by these dive champions, especially when playing a long range squishy champ like vel'koz. You can try and keep your distance, you can maintain a very high standard of warding, and you can have good map awareness, but eventually they're gonna get you. By this point I was in Plat 1 and I was bouncing up and down the LP. I even got to the promos once, lost 2 games immediately and then fell back down. I knew that the diamond rank would come if I just kept grinding out the games, but I wanted it faster. And that reminded me of why I used to play Galio. Galio brings to the table everything that vel'koz doesn't. He's lower in damage, but he has much more CC and roam potential. He's much better against dive champions, because as they dive in trying to assassinate in a short period of time, you can CC chain them forever. One-tricking is a good choice for many people because it saves a lot of time. You don't have to spend thousands of games perfecting each and every champion's skill shots and abilities, knowing which build you can take against which champions. You can just focus on the one. But every one trick has their secondary for when either their one trick is banned, taken, or the game is just too much of a challenge for you to be bothered playing. So I have no shame in telling you that for the last few games of Platinum 1, right before I got to Diamond, when the enemy team had a lot of dive champions that I just did not want to deal with, I would just pick Galio, lock them down, and lock in some easy dubs. You definitely don't need a secondary character to get to Diamond. You can simply one-trick someone like vel'koz and you'll get all the way there. It just will take longer. If you have a second person that fills in the gaps for the first one and helps you win games that otherwise you would have likely lost just because the matchups were unfavourable, it will increase your win rate that bit more. In past seasons, I've definitely tried to one-trick to Masters, or tried this primary and secondary character trick to Masters. But what I found is that the amount of characters that you need to play increases dramatically. I probably could have made it to Masters one-tricking or primary and secondary character playing, but it would have taken me in excess of 1,000 games, and that's just time I don't have. Assuming you're not just trash, what you need to do to get that number down from 1,000 to say 300 or 400 is play a wider variety of champions and pick the correct ones for the correct situations, which is probably going to be more than 2. But hey, I'm not trying to go pro, at least not anymore. So I'm perfectly happy with this little quick climb to Diamond. For the last game before my promotion, I played vel'koz and had a pretty good time, although it ended with me and Soraka stood in the base at Fountain, watching the enemy Nexus be destroyed by a full tank Scion as Jax 1v5 the enemy team. I think Soraka summed it up perfectly. And that was the end of the journey. I finally got those shiny diamond borders with only 43 games played. So let's have a look at the questions I had. Number 1 was, can you jump straight back into the game after a long break and achieve diamond rank fairly quickly? I would say that 43 games is quickly. Honestly, I would say anything less than 100 games is quickly for the League of Legends. So that's a hard yes for me. Number 2 was, can you do this while one-tricking? Now, I do acknowledge that I had about half as many games on Galio as I did vel'koz, so many people might consider that not one-tricking, but you have to remember that very few games took place, and also 4, maybe 5 of those Galio games were in the placements anyway before I decided to switch to vel'koz. But also, there's no doubt in my mind that it would have just taken me about 10 extra games to just exclusively use vel'koz instead of playing the few Galio games at the end. I just wanted it faster. Which brings me to my last question. Can you one-trick a champion no matter what the meta is? Now, it would be incredibly hypocritical of me to just say yes for this, because I did switch to Galio because the dive sort of meta that I was experiencing wasn't as favourable for vel'koz. So in short, the answer is yes, you can get to Diamond one-tricking a champion no matter what the meta is, but it's much easier if you're aware of what the meta is and try and pick a better champion for the situation. So with all that said and done, I was sat there looking at my shiny new Diamond rank, and I thought, what shall I do next? Shall I try and climb even higher? Hell no, this game is garbage.
That's a cool face. Want a date?
We all know I didn't actually uninstall it. It's a sickness.